You're having one of those nights too, right?
Yeah. Left my visuals on for my students.
No, wonderful, wonderful. It is good to be with you this evening. In just a second, where Wes is going to offer a prayer for us. If you have any kind of prayer request, we would like to do that. As you can see, I'm not Andy Conley. Andy called Monday afternoon, I think it was. He said, I forgot one Wednesday I'm not going to be here. I know he had a couple this month, but tonight was one of them that he found out about Monday afternoon too. So I think he's in Pegram tonight is what he said. So we put this together on short notice. We'll chat about the class in a minute. But for right now, if anybody has any prayer requests, you can do. Go ahead, Dennis.
What's his name? Don Peterson.
I've got a dad request too.
A dad request?
He's in a home in Texas. That was one of the things. I was the one who was always going to see him. So with this move, I don't know who's seeing him right now, but they called and they're finding like blood in his urine and things like that. So they don't know what's going on yet, but he's got dementia. His name's Isaiah Turner.
Isaiah Turner. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, Turner. Isaiah Turner. Anybody else or something? Yeah, going back to school for sure. A lot of life happening now. All the students, teachers, babies to be. I see in the back before too long.
Sorry, one more. My friend Wanda, her son, his wife found him in the living room at like 4 a.m. and they think he had been gone for 2 hours. So he got up and was restless, and so she lost her son. It's just been a couple days, so.
Sorry, that was your friend, you said?
Yeah, her name's Wanda Fisher.
Wanda Fisher. All right, anybody else?
Yeah, pray for PTP. It starts next Friday of next week on the 16th. Just pray that God is uplifted and that many people are led to Christ as a result of it. And new Christian friends are met and safe travels.
That's good. Right. Anybody else? All right, Wes.
Let's pray. Almighty God, thank you for this night and this chance that we have as Christians to come together and study from your word and encourage each other. And we ask that as we study tonight, you would help us to clear our minds and focus on what we study, help us to be wise when we study, and as we leave, help us to have the discipline to practice what we learn. We ask that you continue to take care of us all. And thank you for so much that you've given us. You've blessed us with so much. We ask that you would be with Don Peterson's father, with Don Peterson and his cancer, and Isaiah Turner and his health problems. We ask for your healing on them and comfort to their families. And for Wanda Fisher, we pray that you would heal her in the loss of her son as bad things in our lives. Pray that those would be things that would turn us towards you in those times. As everyone's going back to school, we pray that you would use the students, help them to be able to learn what they need to do and be good examples to others and to resist any temptations or bad influences that they might be exposed to. Be with the teachers and help them to do a good job in teaching children. And as Polish Pulpit comes up, pray that would be a fruitful work and that Christians would be encouraged and be able to go from there and spread the gospel to others and make good relationships and have safe travels to and from. Thank you for Jesus dying for our sins. Forgive us of our sins to we forgive others. And in Jesus' name we pray this. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Wes. It is good to be with you. Andy called me a couple months ago and said, I'd like for you to teach with me. So I am here. I've always taught younger, so I'll have to adjust to the older adult class here from middle school I've taught before. But it's good to be with you, and I look forward to teaching with Andy. As I said, even though he's ditched me tonight, he was going to kick off tonight with kind of an overview on faith and realized Monday afternoon he had to be in Pegram, I think it is tonight, for summer series. So we'll kick off with, again, kind of an overview. But I really, our goal was to make this as productive and interactive as we could and relevant to us as a church. I like what the elders and the education committee are doing with kind of these themes as we had for the summer, hope, and now faith is kind of the focus for this. We keep calling it quarter, but I think it's a quarter plus a month this time with all of the classes. So I think that's a good thing to help us as individuals in our walks and with our faith and trying to strengthen that, but obviously that'll build our congregation as well. So Andy and I really wanted to make this as relevant and practical as we could, our daily walks with the challenges we face, and we're open to suggestions as well. I'm going to kind of run through some of the things we brainstormed about a week or so ago for topics. If there's any that particularly interest you, definitely speak up, because these aren't hard carved on the calendar yet. So we definitely want to make sure that we cover them if it's something you'd like to hear. If there's something you'd like to dig in deeper in, whether that's your own personal life or how you relate to that in the workplace or friends or whatever we can do, we're open to all that too, because we really want to make this as practical in terms of just the real life struggles we face and the choices we have to make with our faith. Just kind of examining in general, what is faith? How can we apply it on a daily basis? How do we deal with the tests and struggles? So at some point in the semester, we're also going to bring in some of the younger guys, I think, that went through the summer. We saw how good they were with some classes, kind of give us different perspectives on some of our topics, and maybe as a specific topic we know somebody that's relevant to, so it won't always just be Andy and I, but maybe 4, 5, 6 times through the semester get some of those as well. But here's, like I said, kind of some of the topics we kicked out just to give you a flavor for what we're going for with this class. And again, if these are particular to you, you want to make sure we hit them, let us know. These ring a bell with something else, let one of us know, and we'll incorporate those in our class. So real world topics that we discussed, our stages in life, young, moving to old. Those are different challenges, as we already know and we will face, whether we're dealing with our kids' parents. We want to get into how our faith changes over that time, maturity in that, and how we deal with certain situations. Faith in our families, our home life, real world practical problems we have to face in those situations. Being a newer Christian, younger Christian versus the mature Christian. Those are different walks in faith that we have. We want to dig into that a little bit. And then just everyday type stuff in our workplace, in schools, kind of the crazy world around us, government, politics. How do we deal with those kind of things? How do we make sense of those type of things? Andy had one of them he called newspaper items. Here's what's in the headlines. Here's what's going on in this crazy world around us. How do we apply that? Just, again, kind of personal change as we mature. We realize there's different obstacles we face, and how we can grow our faith to deal with those. How we can apply faith to our personal ministries, evangelism, reaching out to others, whether that's, again, just family, friends, those type of things. Financial distress. We all go through situations, but also the other extreme of that, abundance. And that can be as challenging to our faith as the less. We want to get into that. Bad health, how we face health challenges. We've heard some tonight. We all will face that or go through that. Loss, death, grief, those type of things. School, what our kids have to face, my teachers have to face, or grandchildren, whatever stage you're in, faith challenges in that. Friendships, both here in church and outside, maybe friends we want to introduce to church, convert them, bring them in. How do we deal with them, especially when they may be trying times for our faith? Giving, benevolence, service in general to each other and to the church. Relationships, whether that's the stage you're in, whether that's dating, marriage, our family relationships, those type of things. And again, those are just some of the ones we kicked around. You have other ones, we're open to that. We have, again, an extra month to fill in. That was just kind of to kick it off and get things going. So please let one of us know if you have that. That said, that's kind of the overview of what we're trying to do this term while we discuss faith. So let's hop into it. Faith. When I say that word, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Bible, what we challenge, what comes to mind when we discuss faith? Belief. Mm-hmm. Belief. Anybody else?
Assurance that something's going to happen.
Assurance. Absolutely.
Trusting that God's got it even when we don't like the choices.
Oh, you're right on with that one. Trusting. God's got it even when we don't necessarily like that answer. We have the faith that God knows more than we do in that. Absolutely. Is faith something tangible? Untangible? Mm. Any thoughts? No? Oh, well, good. I got a little something for you tonight then. How do we demonstrate our faith? How do people know we have faith?
We make decisions based on what we have faith in. So.
Mm-hmm. Do we necessarily have to talk about it? Do I have to tell people, here's my faith. I'm Church of Christ. I'm Christian, whatever that is. Does that go along with it? There's something over here. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. No, we don't. Hopefully, yeah. No, I think that's our goal. Yeah, I like that. Okay, well, let's start with definitions then. Maybe this will help get us thinking on the words. We'll start with the obvious English, Merriam-Webster. Here's a few things that are in that. Allegiance to duty or a person. Kind of you think of it in terms of I've lost faith in the president, in the boss, in this person, whatever, that type of thing. Fidelity to one's promises. I've said I'm going to do something, you can count on it, that type of faith. Or you've told me you're going to, I expect that type of faith. And along with that kind of sincerity of your intentions. I've acted in good faith. I've tried to do this for you. I've acted in good faith. Then we get into a little bit different side of that with belief and trust and loyalty to God or to traditional doctrines of religion. Another one is firm belief in something for which there is no proof. Clinging to the faith that her missing son would one day return. It's kind of the example they had with that. Complete trust is one of those. Something that is believed, especially with strong conviction, such as religious beliefs. These are from the Webster's Dictionary, and a lot of those, they date back to kind of the 1300s is what it goes. We stole that word from the French. But those type of original definitions were proof, sincerity, loyalty, belief, trust, faithful, carrying it on, complying with, believe. Those were the original English definitions with that. But now let's hop into what our Bible says on that and what Strong's in particular has aided with in our discovery. When I think of faith, what's the first part of the Bible you think of when you hear faith? Hebrews 11, that's right. That was my first thing. But let's start with the Old Testament because there's faith obviously throughout this Bible and a lot of lessons that we learn in Hebrews 11 from that. So let's start with the word in Hebrew, emunah. Emunah, E-M-U-N-A-H is that word. And it is a truth, a faithfulness, a firmness, a security, fidelity, entrusted, honesty, office of trust, stability, steady, sure truth. And continuing on with the Hebrew in Judaism, it's not a kind of yes, no, I have it or I don't. It's much bigger than that. It's a kind of your minimum requirement is I have that belief, that yes, no belief, but it grows from there. And in fact, the word that the Hebrew word is derived from, emunah, is uman, and that means an artisan, a craftsman, a practitioner. So it's kind of the mindset of here's this thing, and we build upon it. We take our skills, we take what's around us, and build from there. It's kind of, we associate an artist. I can tell you real quick, and Sonia will confirm. Everybody in our family except for me is an artist. Like, can't draw the straight line with a ruler. Everybody else is very gifted. Some of that they started with, right? There's that innate talent that you start with, but then you use your skills to build upon it. That's kind of the same idea in that Hebrew word is, here's something that's in me, and let me practicing, utilizing it, building upon it, learning. That's the idea behind that. In fact, in the modern Hebrew, it starts with an I instead of an E. The word literally means exercise. Like you'll see it on the fitness places. It's exercise. That's what we're doing with our faith. It's putting it in practice and growing and strengthening it, and doing what we need to grow. So it's not this kind of static thing we do. It's an ongoing growth, and we'll read a few examples from that. But it's this active pursuit and process. It's kind of the mindset between the Hebrew word for faith that they do. And kind of continuing on with that artistry concept, Sonia probably had to jump in. She shared the video with me. It was really kind of fit with this today when we were discussing this and showing her some of my notes. Arthur Brooks, he's written several books, and he was a prominent think tank kind of guy back in the day. He's kind of moved out to more this type of thing, growth, personal growth, those type of things, and gave a great talk on the difference between Western art and Eastern art. And he was talking about in the Western art, we're starting our art, we think of, here's the blank canvas, right? We put our paint, we have our brush strokes, we build from there. That's what they're starting with. In the Eastern art, the mindset, and this, we can see this in other artists as well, kind of the sculpture. He was discussing being in a museum and right away saw this big, beautiful jade sculpture. And he said, I don't even know anything, why I know that's Chinese art, but I know it's Chinese art. Why do I know that's what it is? And so the tour guy was explaining kind of the philosophy and mindset behind it. How in the Western mindset, we've got the blank canvas. Let's add our paint. Let's do all this. In that mindset, they see the big block of jade, and they know there's something inside of that. How do we chip away until we find that art? The art's already in it. And that's kind of what our faith is, because if you think about it and you look around the world, there's something in us that wants more, some kind of higher purpose. Now, we're here, so ours is obviously God. We're that's our higher purpose, and all the service and everything that comes along with that. We look around the world around us, the things that people replace with that is their higher purpose. And some of it obviously gets into other religions or those type of things, but a lot of it's things of this world or whatever. So we have that in us, and that's kind of the mindset behind that Hebrew word of it's in us. Let's find it. Let's chip away till we help that grow and find what's in us so we can present that to others. So that's the Hebrew part of that. It makes sense? We're getting to your definitions on it, right, Wes? Can you help out now with a few verses? Here, let's read a few of these examples, if you don't mind. Habakkuk 2:4. Somebody can get that. Can somebody? Habakkuk 2:4. Habakkuk 2:4. 2 Kings 22:7. Wes, can you do that one? 2 Chronicles 19, 8 through 10. Somebody do that? Dennis, thank you. Proverbs 12:17. Thank you. And Proverbs 28:20. Kyle, Proverbs 12:17, then Proverbs 28:20. All right, Habakkuk 2:4.
Behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by his faith.
Okay, by faith. That's how we should live. That's how we show what we're doing. 2 Kings 22:7.
2 Kings 22:7. However, there need be no accounting made with them of the money delivered into their hand, because they deal faithfully.
They deal faithfully. Anybody else? Well, nobody else turn to it. I have the ES. What do you have for your version there, Wes? I think mine's. Okay, I think I took this out of ESV. For they deal with it honestly. Is that word. Honestly is what they deal with in that word. So some of you may have that one. 2 Chronicles 19, 8 through 10.
Moreover, in Jerusalem, for the judgment of the Lord and for controversies, Jehoshaphat appointed some of the Levites and priests and some of the chief fathers of Israel when they returned to Jerusalem. And he commanded them, saying, Thus you shall act in the fear of the Lord, faithfully with a loyal heart. Whatever case comes to you from your brethren who dwell in their cities, whether of bloodshed or offenses against the law or commandment, against statutes or ordinances, you shall warn them, lest they trespass against the Lord, and wrath come upon you and your brethren. Do this, and you will not be guilty.
That faithfulness they describing there is, again, that word of the growth. And he's obviously laying out for them how they're to act and the consequences of that. Proverbs 12:17.
A truthful witness gives honest testimony, but a false witness tells lies.
Tells lies. Would you mind skipping down to 22 also? I'm sorry, I just saw that one.
22. The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in men who are truthful.
Truthful. In 12:17, truth, what was your word you had at the beginning? Whoever speaks? A truthful witness. And in the ESV, in that verse 22, where you said truthfully, or has faithfully. So we can kind of see the way the word works in the Hebrew there with both of those, laying out the faith as we should live. Proverbs 28:20.
A faithful man will abound with blessings, but whoever hastens to be rich will not go unpunished.
A faithful man. So we see there are just some examples of that type, that emunah type of faith in the Old Testament. In the Hebrew word, there's another Hebrew word that they use as well that kind of gets in the various ideas we have on faith that I think will give a little bit more clarity as we move into the New Testament here. Alman is that verb, alman. And that one is a stability and a confidence type of thing. In fact, the example they give, and we'll read one of these verses in a minute, is like a baby's going to find in the arm of their parents. That's that faith they're talking about. Amon is what that is. Other places it uses to build up and support, to trust and believe, but it gives a little bit different level of comfort. I think you mentioned earlier that assurance and comfort. That's that word Amon is. The babies feel safe in the mom's arms, right? That's what this word is. Genesis 15:6, if you wouldn't mind, Wes. Genesis 15:6. Isaiah 60, verse 4. All right, thank you. And then Daniel 6:23. 6:23. Do you mind that? Thanks, Tim. Okay, Genesis 15:6.
15:6. And he believed in the Lord, and he accounted it to him for righteousness.
Mm-hmm. He believes. So again, we're getting back to not just the faithfulness side of it, but the belief side of it, that confidence as well. Isaiah 60, verse 4.
Lift up your eyes round about and see. They all gather together, they come to you. Your sons will come from afar, and your daughters will be carried in the arms.
Carried in the arms. And again, in the ESV, it says carried on the hip. That's, again, that word aman is that carry, that security, that confidence that we get. Carried in the arms, carried in the hip. Daniel 6:23.
Then the king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God.
He had trusted in his God. Again, that's that Aman trust. And that's also used in Exodus, the accounts where Moses is told to do stuff, and Pharaoh's not going to believe me. All that exchange with God that he's given for excuses why it's not going to work. That word belief through all that is this same Aman in the original Hebrew. So again, that Hebrew context it's in us. There's that security, there's that confidence, but we build upon it and grow. We show that in our lives through the belief. Now let's move again. We talked about Hebrews 11, right? We'll move over to the New Testament now with that. In the Greek, pistis is that word that we often see. In fact, the first part of Hebrews 11, verse 1. Now faith, pistis, is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. That word comes from, its root is pytho. That word pytho is to convince by argument, to win over. It's got a little bit different context than just kind of that belief and that assurance, and obviously that's part of it. But that's what it comes from, is winning them over, or kind of you're urging somebody to come along, right? Here's what we're doing. Come along with that. It's persuasion. It's a kind of giving credence to this thought and this notion. And obviously through that, we have our reliance upon Christ. Here's what's doing for this. There's where it's being urged to do in our life. It was a word used by Greek merchants if they want to do business with you or even extend credit to you. That's kind of their original, transunion. Pistis. Do I trust you enough to extend credit to you, to do business with you? It's that same association of faith in dealing with business. It was used in, again, as I said, in persuasion. Aristotle talked about it to describe rhetorical proofs in argument. Cicero talked about, used that word to describe having confidence in leaders. And, as he wrote about leaders and all that. And there's even a Greek, not quite a God status, but a Greek spirit that's personified. It's called pistis. It represented truth, honesty, and good faith. She wasn't born out of divine lineage like the gods, but was born out of our need to understand. Again, getting back to that there's something inside of us when you do. That was the Greek equivalent, taking that word faith, creating a kind of spirit, as the Greeks did with their gods and spirit. But that's in our need. That's how the Greeks explained our need to understand. And, the rest of the story is when Pandora's box was open, that one escaped because they didn't want to deal with mankind and took off to the heavens to be with the gods, because that's why we don't have the truth, is the Greek explanation for that. But that's that faith concept of, again, persuasion, urging you to do that. Is that especially as we read Hebrews 11:1, is that a blind faith? Is that what it's describing? No, I think sometimes the world tells us, what are the things the world says about our faith and what we're worshiping and all that, right? Some spirit we can't see, something that's out there. We don't, see all these kind of things in the comment sections if you're one that reads those. The attacks on Christianity, we're just, what are we believing in? That's never what this is talking about. This is not a blind faith of just, we're here because. That's where the Bible, in fact, everything we just read, and we'll continue on discussing, this is not a blind faith. This is that word pistis, has the connotation of trustworthiness based on some level of evidence and confidence and reliability. So that's what we need to take from that as we're living. James 1:5-8. Let me do that one since you like that one. Somebody recommended that one, so she can read that one. Romans 3:3-4. Anybody read that one? Dennis, you did that one. 3:3-4. Acts 17:30-31. Thank you. 17, 30, and 31. And then Matthew 8:5-10. Wes, will you do that one? A couple more. We'll talk about those in a minute. And again, as I just said, kind of think on that different context between Old Testament. Again, we're still talking about faith. We're doing our walk with God. We're trying to get closer to Him, build our faith that's in us, also based on the evidence in the world we see around us that God's created, obviously, and ways in showing that. So kind of think on the difference moving from the Old Testament to the New Testament as we describe that. James 1:5-8.
But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But he must ask in faith without any doubting. For the one who doubts is like the surf of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For that man ought not to expect that he will receive anything from the Lord, being a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways.
Okay, act in faith with no doubting. Are we doubting if our faith is challenged? Are those the same things? Any thoughts on that? I think sometimes we have that, right? We're going through this bad circumstance, why is God doing this to me, right? Are we doubting God, or are we just trying to make sense of what's going on? Do we, if we think about that, are we doubting? Okay.
Yeah, I've never finished it, and I've lost it several times.
Do you have half your faith in? Is that what you're going to say?
It's the book, If You Want to Walk on Water, You Got to Get Out of the Boat.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought it in college, and I've moved several times, so I keep losing it. But one of the things that I've always kind of just ruminated over is he says that the opposite of faith is not doubt or questioning, it's fear.
Oh, I like that. I like that. It gets back to kind of that concept of the Old Testament version of exercise, right? Like, if I exercise, what am I actually doing, Wes? Because as you can tell, I don't exercise. What happens when you're exercising to your body, to the muscles? What's happening with those?
Causing damage, I guess, on some level.
Causing damage, and it's regrowing a little bit bigger, right? That's what's happening. So it's that same. If we're challenging, we're what's the in Proverbs the iron the sharp iron, right? It's that mindset. I don't find it doubting at all. So I agree with you, but I think we're afraid to challenge ourselves in our faith, right? Sometimes, me personally, I tell you, I don't want to be seen as doubting when I'm trying to make sense of a situation. I'm going through bad times, whatever, helping somebody even with their problem, dealing with, a loss, financial issues, all those things we have to deal with in the real world. I've got to deal with it all the time in what I do for a living. I'll just tell you, it is not fun to have to deal with that situation. So these are challenges. So I'd like to think when I'm doing, I'm not doubting, right? I'm not doubting. I know God exists. I know He had a Son who died for me because I'm sure not good enough to do it on my own, right? Those kind of things. I think we're afraid to say those kind of challenging our faith. That's not doubt. Does that make sense? Everybody agree with that? So I want to make sure. It was one of the things, Andy. We want to make sure that's clear. Challenging is good. It's different than doubting. That's how our faith grows. It's kind of the concept of, all the problems we go through in life prepare us for the next problem, right? Here's what we're going through now. It's the end of the world. Well, no, it's not. We got through it. But, it's getting ready for the next thing, right? Especially if you got kids, you know what that's like. All the different stages of life you've been through on your own. So I want to make sure, kind of point that out when she read that about with no doubting. I think we're afraid to discuss challenges we face when we shouldn't. We shouldn't. We shouldn't be afraid to share those with others. There's three kinds of people in the world. There's somebody that is going through a horrible problem right now. There's somebody that just got out of that horrible problem. There's somebody getting ready to have that horrible problem. Right? That's life. We've been through that, and hopefully it's a long time before you go into that. But that's reality. And so I think we're afraid to kind of discuss our faith, accept those challenges of faith, and not be seen as doubting. I think that's something that we need to be real mindful of as we're dealing with others while they're going through that as well. In that makes sense. Any comment on that?
Like I had that same thing the other day. I had to remind myself because I kind of went through it in college. Like this guy, we were at ACU, and like I think we were all afraid that the Coliseum was going to be struck by lightning because this guy came in and he got up on the pulpit and on the stage and he started yelling at God, and that was his introduction. Like we were like, "What is wrong with you?" Like like we're gonna get shot. And so that was his way of being like, "Look, if you read the Old Testament, how honest they were with God. Some things that they say sometimes that we would be like, whoa, we would never say that." And so the other day, and so that was my first introduction to thinking, maybe I can say things because he already knows what I'm thinking anyway, but I still hesitate. So the other day I had an episode of that too, like I was being honest with him, but still almost that fearfulness that, I can't do this because he's God. Because if there's something wrong, this has always been my issue. If there's something wrong, it's not him. It's me. It's a lack of understanding on my part. It's something I'm not seeing correctly. So why question him? But it's about relationship.
Yeah, there you go. It's about the relationship. I think and again, we want to be respectful, reverential, but getting back to that Old Testament idea of faith and the exercising it and challenging it and all that. God already knows what's going on in here and in our heart, right? He already knows. What He wants us to tell Him that we get it and we're relying on Him. As you said, there's plenty of examples in the Old Testament of, God, why is this? Why are you doing this? What almost to the point of like, what's wrong with you? I, again, but I don't see that as doubting your faith, right? I think that's challenging.
Probably David did that more than anyone.
Absolutely. A man, and that's I love to hear you say it, Tim. That's my favorite example. I feel like a David sometimes. I'm trying, but right here's all the things in life. But he's after God's own heart, and he flat out, God, why are you doing this to me? What's wrong? I don't see that as his faith in doubt, though, right? He's having that conversation with God. It's not like he turned his back and walked away from God and said, I'm done. His faith was in God. Help me understand why I'm doing this. What's going on? Help me make sense of that. And through that, obviously, his faith grew. So, I kind of wanted to point that out because I think we're afraid to do those things, right? And again, we want to do those respectfully, reverentially. God already, like I said, he already knows what's going on in here. He wants us to know what's going on in here and let him know we get it. We need that level of help. That's not doubting him, though. That's not doubting. That's challenge. So Romans 3, verses 3 through 4.
What if some... Oh, go ahead.
I'm saying.
Or what if some did not believe? Will their unbelief make the faithfulness of God without effect? Certainly not. Indeed, let God be true, but every man a liar, as it is written, that you may be justified in your words and may overcome when you are judged.
That word, again, getting back to that pistis, the unfaithful, the faith. You had a different word, I think, for your first one. Mine had what if some were unfaithful, their faithlessness did not believe. Yeah, it gets back to that connotation of the faith, the belief. All those the same, but isn't that laying out? Okay, there are going to be challenges to our faith. We don't get to the point of unfaithful, but he's telling you here's what's going to happen if we are. And again, I think we need to be not afraid to challenge our faith and have it challenged. I think we shy away from those situations. Because we don't want to be seen as doubting God. Those are two different things. Just want to make sure we kind of get that. Acts 17, 30, 31. Did I get it?
In the past, God overlooked ignorance, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent. For he has set a day when he will judge the world with justice by the man he has appointed. He has given proof of this to everyone by raising him from the dead.
Proof was what yours said. Mine says assurance. I don't know if anybody else has a different one. But again, those are all these different words for faith that are used in the New Testament. I'll do one more and then touch back on that. Matthew, do you have Matthew 8, 5 through 10?
Matthew 8, 5 to 10. Now when Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, pleading with him, saying, Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed, dreadfully tormented. And Jesus said to him, I will come and heal him. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak a word, and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man under authority, having soldiers under me. When I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard it, he marveled and said to those who followed, Assuredly I say to you, I have not found such great faith, not even in Israel.
What's a centurion? Roman officer. He's not working for the good guys, right? He's in charge, especially later on, of kind of keeping these Christians in line in all kinds of horrible ways. What would it be like if Jesus, when he's around all these people, he's got his apostles, and I have never seen such faith? How's that going to make you feel? Is that how we need to strive for? And then here's the guy who didn't even feel Jesus. He shouldn't even been asking Jesus how he really felt, but he knew Jesus could do it. Again, that faith is what this New Testament word is. Is faith a doctrine? You've heard. I don't know. We grew up in kind of by Notre Dame. So, are you of what faith are you from? Right. What their meaning is, what's your religion? Right. You're the Catholic faith. Are you different? You have a faith. Is that the same type of word and context we're talking about in this? Not really. Not really. It touches on it. Not really. In fact, we'll read one here in a second. Romans 1. Did I give that? Romans 1, 5 and 6. I'll read that one real quick. Part of it. Through whom we have received grace and apostleship to bring about the obedience of faith for the sake of his name among the nations, including you who are called to belong to Jesus Christ. That kind of touches on that kind of doctrinal faith. But how do you answer that question? What faith are you? Is it wrong to even discuss that? Because we face it. I mean, years some of you know I kind of do political kind of stuff, public opinion type stuff. I was helping a guy, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, create a poll. right? And he was going to do a follow-up focus group on that. And he kept trying to figure out what the religion. He didn't want to say, what religion are you? Because of the connotation some people, involved in the political process. And he couldn't think of a word. And we had this hour-long conversation about whether, the word faith is okay. Because what does that mean? And it started this, that led to then a conversation about our own faith, is how, what brings this to mind. It was, here's why I believe what I believe. Why do you believe what you believe in that faith? When I use the word denomination or religion, like I said, we were trying to get away from that to really truly get into something, but we kept going back to that faith, right? That's for whatever reason we kept going back to that, and I just remember thinking, is this wrong? Right? What does the Bible say about that? And I don't think we're wrong in using that, because that is our kind of system of belief, and in our here's our faith, our doctrine, here's what our Bible teaches us. So I don't think that's wrong, but I think, again, that's one of those things we're afraid to discuss, right? Because of that, what religion am I? What denomination am I? What faith am I? I think that gives us an opportunity to talk about faith, because, like I said, it gave a good hour-long conversation with a guy who was struggling with his faith. I found out about halfway through that call. So maybe that was just God's way of, allowing a discussion on that with me and this guy who I know doesn't go to church and certainly doesn't always live well, but was struggling to figure out what his faith was. But I kind of dug into that, and there is an example of that in Strong's, and it's kind of the fancy word for it is metonymy, right? It's kind of this concept of, here's something that represents something. Kind of think of the Brits. They talk about the crown, right? The crown, they're not actually talking about the crown that goes on the head. They're talking about the now king. I always say the queen, the now king, royal family. It's kind of that same concept. When I talk about faith, I'm not necessarily talking about that, but kind of that broad. Does that make sense? I did find an example of that in the Strong's, and this is what it kept going back to, is that Romans one I just read. So again, another use of that word pistis from the Greek, from Hebrew, discussing that. One more here, 1 Peter 5:12. Somebody have that?
Got that?
All right, Wes.
By Silvanus, our faithful brother, as I considered him, I have written to you briefly, exhorting and testifying that this is the true grace of God in which you stand.
Wait a minute, I don't know if I did good with you on that one, Wes. Let me look that one up here. 1 Peter 5:12, was that what you had?
Yes.
Okay. I'll go back and find what verse this is. I put down first, but it may be 2 Peter. Therefore, let those who suffer according to God's will entrust their souls to a faithful Creator while doing good. That also, we know we have a faithful Creator. That gets back to kind of the part of the definition, I think it was in the Webster's dictionary, about kind of that fidelity, that faithful duty that we have. He's faithful to us too. It's not just about our faith. He's faithful to us. Now, he also, he's faithful in the consequences too. Here's our opportunity. He's told us, and you can count on it. Here's what happens if you do well. Here's what happens if you don't. He's faithful in that part too. But he's faithful to us. He's going to be there for us when we take our challenges in faith, when we take our issues we're having in our family, with our kids, with our parents, when we're facing illnesses, when we're facing just, how do I survive this crazy world? I mean, let's be honest, it's crazy. It's not as crazy as it's ever been. We'll talk about that. In fact, Tim did a brilliant job. I'm going to borrow your notes from our conflict class. There's a few of those I wanted to get. This isn't as crazy as it's got, okay? It's just not. We'll have some perspective in our faith in dealing that. Now, maybe the craziest in our lifetime? Yeah, maybe. But it's not the craziest it's ever been. Maybe more in your face than it's ever been. Those are the challenges of our faith that we want to get into during this class with Andy, during this 4 months we have. So think on those topics I already said. If there's some you definitely, let's talk about that. That's something I'm struggling with, something I need to dig in more so I understand, so I can help a friend, family member, whatever. Let us know that. But I want to leave you with this. We're almost out of time. And I'll give my credit where credit is due. My definitely better half, from probably her notes in the Bible or something, but she gave this to me. Faith is our anchor, right? If you really think about it, all the things we have to do, getting back to that again, Hebrew definition of faith, it's in us. Something is in here, right? Something is in here. We're trying to figure out. We're fortunate. Somebody's taught us. We grew up with parents that bought us. Whatever that is, we've nurtured that faith to get to where we are. But that's really, if you think, that's the anchor, right? We have faith in God or we don't. We have faith in that. That faith leads to our confidence that we have, that we can build upon, the hope that we have. You know, her quote, you can't fake it to make it with faith, right? It's just that simple. It's what it has to be in our core being. Um, and getting back to how we show it, our works show it. We have that faith. People can tell. Like I'll be real blunt, and I probably shouldn't say this because there's a camera. I am not comfortable talking about my faith to the point where I go up and just, hey, here's what I am. Here's where I go to church. That is not me. Those of you who know me, like I'm talking a lot and rambling now, but I'm kind of a quiet, very private person. Part of that's the nature of what I do. That's not my comfort level. That said, I can't tell you how many people have come to me with their problems. There's something they're seeing. I don't know what. I'm not giving me credit because I know you've dealt with this too, right? I don't know what it is. I've had people. See how I can say this without it. I've had somebody come into my office, very high ranking in one of the political campaigns going on in former administration. Close the door. Female. Everybody knows I don't do that. Like we don't. I'm kind of that Mike Pence kind of thing. Don't come in there and close the door if you're a female in the workplace. Here, there's talk can be had. Did that. She said, I know you're a praying person. I need help. Right? We never talked about it. I think there was kind of people knew I went to church because I did. I'm a great little congregation down in Sarasota I went to and loved it. But I didn't talk about it. That wasn't my comfort level. People know I didn't drink. People know I didn't cuss. All those kind of things. I don't know what else she saw in that, but she came in with a real problem. Here's what I'm dealing with. Let's pray. I don't know if she'd ever prayed in her life. Maybe she had. That's what we've got to show. Because we live in a hurting world, right? We live in a hurting world. That's that faith that's in us that we build upon through our works, through our service. That's our anchor. Yes?
I just keep going back to that sculpture thing, that illustration, but I also think about some of the things that we saw when we went on our trip, how so many sculptures were left undone. Mm-hmm. Because when they were chipping away, they knew what was inside, but they weren't finding it. Mm-hmm. So there's so many throughout Italy where there's half-done sculptures, oh, yeah. And because as they're going through, so I just keep going back to that. God, He knows what He was doing when He made us, but if we don't let Him chip away at us, so it's like all these trials and things. It's really just that finding that faith in there and showing that through. Whereas with the painting illustration, the guy said at some point you can't put any more brush strokes on the canvas, and that to me is us controlling it, mm-hmm. And we make a mess of it.
Absolutely.
But if you let us be chipped away to get to that faith, there's something beautiful inside, and that's what we've got to.
Absolutely. Yes, that's the bell tonight. I'm not sure what that was. But that's exactly. That's the faith. It's here. Let's figure out how to build upon it. So that's what we want to do. Make this just really practical class for us this semester. I think sometimes it's like, yeah, we go to the Bible for our answers, and here's the verse. Don't be anxious. Well, I get it. Don't be anxious, but I got this problem, this problem, this problem, and then I got like 18,000 deadlines on top of each one of those problems. Let's get a little bit more practical and find some, here's some things. Yep, maybe there's some additional verses. Here's some different context and understanding of these things. But here's also kind of like, now we will never deviate from our Bible. Here's some other things to think about as you're dealing with that problem. That's the kind of stuff we want to deal with this class. So I hope it's helpful to you. I know we're out of time by the very loud bell that just went. So I apologize. I'm rambling. Andy just gave me a day to get everything ready here. So I hope I've done all right. But we've at least got some definitions and kind of thinking on here's faith in the various contexts in the Bible as we go forward in our our discussion. So thank you. I hope you have a good rest of the week.
I'm Smitria.
Sumitra, I was going to ask, we didn't get